Ethan Cole had never thought that carrying a tray of coffee could feel like walking through a minefield. The Interstellar Cultural Exchange Station was alive with beings from hundreds of different civilizations, each more colorful and strange than the last. He had studied their customs, their languages, their habits, but nothing could prepare him for the sheer presence of Princess Cyalira of the Varelian Empire. She was elegance itself, tall, poised, with skin that shimmered like polished bronze, and eyes that could cut straight through a person's soul. And, as it turned out, she was also a magnet for disasters. Ethan's job was simple. He was a junior diplomatic aide, the kind who was supposed to stay out of the spotlight, carry drinks, deliver messages, and avoid any sort of attention. Today, however, fate seemed to have other plans. He had been assigned to serve coffee during a high-profile meeting between the Varelians and the representatives from Earth. A simple task, one he had performed countless times before. Yet somehow, the universe conspired against him. The moment he stepped into the grand hall, everything seemed slower than usual. Delegates from species he could not even begin to pronounce names for were discussing trade, diplomacy, and interstellar law. His boots clicked against the polished floor as he navigated between clusters of glowing figures, careful to keep the tray level. The cups were filled with Earth coffee, a strange beverage to most aliens, but considered exotic and luxurious. Ethan reminded himself repeatedly that one misstep could cost him his job, or worse, his life. And then it happened. One small, insignificant pebble of bad luck. He didn't even notice it at first. His foot caught on a slight rise in the floor, a seam where two panels met. His body lurched, and before he could think to stop it, the tray tilted. A perfect arc of steaming liquid flew from the cup, arcing through the air in slow motion. It landed directly on the ceremonial robes of Princess Cyalira. Time froze in the hall. Delegates gasped, some frozen in shock, others hiding their expressions behind their cultural masks. Ethan's heart sank. Every warning from the training manuals flashed through his mind. Varelians were strict about honor. Any insult, accidental or otherwise, could start wars. He imagined the headlines across the galaxy: "Human offends princess, sparks interstellar conflict." Ethan opened his mouth to apologize, but the words caught in his throat. He had no idea how to even begin. The princess, still standing perfectly upright despite the coffee soaking her robes, slowly turned her head toward him, her eyes locked onto his. There was a strange intensity there, not anger, not fear, but a kind of urgent calm that made Ethan's skin tingle. She leaned slightly closer and whispered in a voice so soft he barely heard it over the shocked gasps around him, "Take my clothes off." The hall went silent. Ethan froze. He couldn't move. The words did not make sense. He looked around, half expecting someone to correct the misunderstanding. But the delegates were watching with a mixture of horror and fascination. The station's security officer stiffened, hands hovering near their weapons. No one moved. Everything hung in balance, waiting for him to act. Ethan's mind raced. He had read about Varelian customs, but nothing in the manuals had ever mentioned this. He had no training for such a situation, and yet, he realized instinctively that this was not a threat. The princess's voice carried urgency, not anger. Something was wrong, something serious. He didn't understand exactly what, but the expression in her eyes told him that hesitation could have consequences far beyond a mere spill. His legs felt like lead, but he forced himself to step forward. The princess's attendants, glowing figures of light and shadow, whispered among themselves in a rapid Varelian dialect. Ethan caught a few words he recognized from his limited xenolinguistics training. The gist became horrifyingly clear. The coffee was not just coffee. The liquid contained caffeine, a substance harmless to humans, but toxic to Varelian skin when trapped against it for long periods. Their ceremonial clothing wasn't just for show. It was a living barrier designed to protect them from chemical exposure. The spill had turned her own robe into a potential hazard. The reality hit Ethan like a shockwave. The princess's urgent command wasn't about humiliation or scandal. It was a request for immediate help. The robe needed to be removed to prevent harm. His training kicked in. Years of emergency response drills, xenobiology courses, and human instinct converged into a single thought. Act, protect, preserve life. He nodded, barely able to speak. I understand, he said carefully, keeping his tone calm. Security officers stiffened, but he raised a hand to signal them to wait. The princess didn't flinch. Her eyes remained steady, watching him. Ethan moved closer, carefully following the instructions of the princess's attendants. The fabric was unlike anything he had seen. Thin, delicate, and alive with faint pulses of energy. One wrong move could ruin it, or worse, injure her. He worked quickly, removing the outer ceremonial layers with utmost care. Each movement was precise, guided by the principles of respect and protection. He kept his back turned to the onlookers to preserve the princess's dignity, but everyone in the hall could see the tension in the room. As he worked, Ethan noticed something remarkable. Despite the chaos and the potential danger, Princess Scifi remained composed. Her gaze never wavered. There was no panic, no accusation. Only trust. For the first time, Ethan realized why humans had been invited to this station. Humans were not the strongest, the fastest, or the most technologically advanced, but they could act when it mattered most. Their courage and adaptability were their greatest weapons. By the time the medics arrived to finish neutralizing the threat, the situation was under control. The princess was safe. Her robes, though partially ruined, had not caused her harm. Ethan stepped back, trembling slightly, but proud. He had survived the first trial of interstellar diplomacy without catastrophic failure. The hall remained quiet for a moment longer. Then, something unexpected happened. Princess Scifi laughed, not loudly, not mockingly, but softly, a sound like wind chimes through sunlight. It was a laugh of genuine amusement and relief. The tension in the room dissolved like morning mist, and the delegates began to whisper among themselves. Ethan didn't understand all the reactions, but he felt a surge of relief. He had done it. He had acted. He had saved a life. Later, in the privacy of the princess's chambers, the attendants explained everything to him fully. The Varelian robes were woven from living fibers that reacted to chemical exposure. Any human substance could be dangerous if trapped against the skin. The caffeine in the coffee had been enough to trigger a severe reaction. If he had hesitated, the princess could have suffered permanent damage. His actions had prevented disaster. Ethan sat quietly, absorbing the information. Every instinct in him told him that he had narrowly escaped a catastrophe, but another part, a quieter, more confident part, recognized something else entirely. Humans had value. Humans could act when logic failed. Humans could respond when culture and custom collided with danger. In that moment, he understood something profound about humanity's place in the galaxy. Princess Scifi returned to her duties dignified as ever, but now with a subtle warmth in her gaze whenever she looked at him. He had earned respect, not through rank, not through skill, not through technology, but through courage, adaptability, and a willingness to act when it mattered most. It was a lesson he would carry for the rest of his life. Sometimes, being human meant stepping into the impossible, trusting your instincts, and facing the consequences head-on. By the end of the day, the story of the coffee incident had spread through the station. Some laughed nervously. Some whispered in awe. For Ethan, it was a quiet triumph. He had survived his first day in the interstellar spotlight, and he had done so by being exactly what humans were supposed to be: unpredictable, brave, and ready to act when no one else could. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Ethan had barely caught his breath after the coffee incident when the station's command center called him. He had expected punishment. Or worse. But instead, a calm voice requested his presence for a private debrief. He glanced at Princess Scialira, who was standing nearby, her elegant form as composed as ever. She gave him a subtle nod, a gesture that held more trust than he had ever received in his life. Walking through the station's corridors, Ethan marveled at the architecture. Unlike anything on Earth, the walls seemed to flow like liquid metal, reflecting lights in shifting patterns. Alien art adorned every corner, some moving, some glowing, all alive with strange energy. Yet, despite the beauty, he remained acutely aware of the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. He had acted on instinct, and it had worked. But now, the galaxy was watching. Every species on the station would remember the human who saved a Varelian princess. How would they interpret it? Hero? Fool? Threat? He couldn't know, and that uncertainty gnawed at him. He arrived at the command center, where a group of Varelian council members awaited. Their tall, lithe forms shimmered with the same metallic glow as the princess. Ethan felt like a child in a room of gods. One of the counselors stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Ethan Cole of Earth," she said, her voice melodic but firm. "Your actions today have been unprecedented. We must understand your intent." Ethan swallowed. I didn't mean to." He paused. Words failed him. "I just wanted to help. I didn't think. I acted." A silence filled the room, and then Princess Scialira spoke. "He acted without hesitation, guided only by reason and concern. That is rare among your species. That is admirable." Her words carried a weight that made Ethan's chest tighten. Admirable. He had done nothing extraordinary, just followed instinct. But somehow it was enough. The council members exchanged glances, their luminescent eyes shifting rapidly. One spoke, her voice slower, deliberate. "In your culture, do humans have a code of immediate action? Are such instinctual responses common?" Ethan shook his head. "Not really. Some humans are trained for emergencies. Some are quick to act, but I think most of us, we just try to do the right thing. Even if it's scary, or if we're unsure of what will happen." He realized as he spoke that he had never thought of it as bravery. It was just the human way, to act when necessary, even at personal risk. The council remained silent for a long moment. Then another member, older and larger than the rest, leaned forward. "Your species is small, young in the galactic sense. Yet today, one human prevented harm to a princess. Shows potential." Ethan blinked. "Potential for what?" "For leadership," the elder said. "For roles in crisis where hesitation can cost lives. Humans may not have the strongest armor, or the deadliest weapons, or the longest history. But you act when others freeze. You think quickly, improvise, and care. That is valuable." Ethan felt a strange warmth inside. He had always been told humans were weak in space diplomacy, that the galaxy would see Earth as a minor player. But here, the Varelians, one of the most respected empires, were recognizing something he had always believed quietly in his heart. Then Princess Scialira turned to him, her eyes serious. "There is more, Ethan. The incident today, it revealed a flaw in our station's emergency protocols. A simple accident could have turned catastrophic. Your actions exposed this gap. We must correct it. And we need humans to help us?" "Humans?" Ethan's mind raced. "We help you?" "Yes," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Your species does not follow traditional methods. You do not rely on centuries of ritual, on rules of protocol, or on fear of failure. You act, and that is why we need you. Humans will be integrated into emergency response teams across the station. You will train with our medics, our diplomats, our engineers, so that when accidents happen, the galaxy has a chance." Ethan struggled to grasp the enormity of her words. This was more than a promotion, more than recognition. This was trust. Across cultures, across species, humans would now be responsible for preventing disasters in situations that even the most advanced civilizations could not anticipate. He nodded slowly. I'll do my best." Sci-Lira's lips curved into the faintest smile. "That is all we ask." The council dismissed him, but as he left the chamber, Ethan could feel the station's attention on him. Delegates whispered, some in admiration, some in disbelief. Humans were supposed to be fragile, unpredictable, even dangerous. But now, Ethan had proven otherwise. His actions had rewritten expectations. Over the following days, Ethan began his new duties. He trained with medics who had never before worked with humans. He learned alien emergency protocols, chemicals, and life support systems. Some were bewildered by his methods. He improvised, adapted, and often solved problems that others struggled with for hours. The Virelians, the species who prided themselves on meticulous planning, were impressed. "Humans think differently," one medic said quietly. "It is effective." During one training simulation, a containment unit malfunctioned, releasing a cloud of inert but toxic gas. The Virelians hesitated, analyzing the protocol. Ethan, recalling his instincts from the coffee incident, acted immediately. He guided the affected personnel to safety, shut down the vent, and stabilized the situation. All in minutes. When the council reviewed the simulation, they called it a human solution to a non-human problem. Ethan smiled. "I just did what seemed right." "Exactly," Princess Sci-Lira said. She had joined the council to observe. "And that is why humans are valuable. You do not see rules as limitations. You see solutions." Ethan began to notice subtle changes around him. Delegates from other species began treating him differently. Some approached him for advice. Others observed his methods, curious about the human approach to problem solving. Even the station's artificial intelligence seemed to respond differently, adapting its protocols based on human interaction. One evening, after a particularly long training session, Princess Sci-Lira invited him to the observation deck. From there, the station looked like a constellation of stars, suspended in the void of space. Ethan had seen Earth from orbit, but this was different. The galaxy stretched endlessly before him, alive with possibilities, dangers, and untold stories. "You have done well," she said, her voice soft against the hum of the station. "Not because you are perfect, but because you act." The galaxy often fears what it does not understand. Humans are unpredictable, and that is a strength. Never forget that.
Ethan nodded. "I think I'm beginning to understand."
It's strange to be valued for simply doing the right thing. "It is," she said, gazing at him steadily. "But it is the truth. Your species is young, but you have courage that the galaxy has not yet seen. Today it is you. Tomorrow it could be an entire fleet of humans making a difference." For the first time, Ethan realized the full weight of responsibility he carried. Every human who set foot on this station could be a test. Their decisions, their actions, could ripple across civilizations. But for the first time, he felt ready. He had survived the coffee incident. He had acted when others froze. And now, he had the trust of one of the galaxy's most respected rulers. Over the next weeks, Ethan continued training, handling emergencies, and participating in diplomatic exercises. He learned the subtle language of alien cultures, the silent cues of their customs, and the delicate balance of interstellar protocol. He also began forming friendships with other humans who were slowly integrated into these high-risk roles. Together, they discovered that humanity's greatest weapon was not strength or technology, but adaptability, empathy, and the courage to act in moments when others hesitated. One day, a simulation went wrong. An artificial starship engine overheated, threatening to release an energy pulse that could destabilize a nearby planet. Varelians panicked, unsure how to respond. Ethan remembered the coffee incident, remembered the trust placed in him. Without hesitation, he coordinated the humans and aliens, devising a new approach that bypassed standard procedures but guaranteed safety. The pulse was neutralized. Damage was prevented. Lives were saved. Afterward, the council called a meeting. Humans are not only capable, Princess Silira said, they are essential. Their presence here changes the way the galaxy perceives action, courage, and responsibility. They are unpredictable, yes, but in the right moments, that unpredictability becomes a force of stability. Ethan felt a swell of pride. He had not sought recognition. He had not aimed to impress. He had simply acted, and in doing so, he had begun to redefine what it meant to be human in a galaxy filled with unimaginable power, protocol, and expectation. For the first time, he realized the full truth of Princess Silira's words. The galaxy did not need humans to be perfect. It needed them to act. It needed them to think, to improvise, to face danger without hesitation. And most of all, it needed humans who could care when no one else could. And so, with each passing day, Ethan Cole became more than a junior aide. He became a symbol of human potential, a reminder that courage, empathy, and action were sometimes more powerful than centuries of tradition. He did not know what the future held, but he was ready. Whatever challenges awaited, he knew humans would rise to meet them, just as he had on the day the coffee spilled. The calm after the coffee incident and the training weeks that followed was deceptive. Ethan Cole had thought he understood his role on the station, that his actions had earned him trust and respect. But the galaxy had a way of reminding humans that learning never ended, that every success was only the beginning of a far bigger test. It began on a quiet morning when the station's alarm system, usually reserved for drills, activated in full force. Red lights bathed the corridors, and a low, resonating hum filled the air. Ethan had felt emergencies before, but this one was different. It wasn't a simulation. The command center was already crowded with Varelian officials, medics, and security officers. Princess Silira stood at the center, calm as ever, her eyes fixed on the data screens. Ethan arrived, still catching his breath from running through the winding corridors. "What's happening?" he asked, urgency tightening his voice. One of the council members, her scales flashing a warning pattern, turned toward him. "A transport vessel has suffered an engine malfunction near the station's outer perimeter. If the containment fails, the release of antimatter could destroy multiple sectors of the station." Ethan's stomach tightened. Antimatter wasn't dangerous in small quantities. It could be neutralized easily. But a full breach? The explosion would be catastrophic. Thousands of lives were at stake. He glanced at the princess. Her calm composure was reassuring. But even she could not stop what was happening. He didn't wait for orders. Years of training in emergencies, combined with instincts from the coffee incident and the weeks of protocols, took over. He assessed the situation, scanning the station layout on the holographic display. The Varelians were frozen, debating, calculating every possible outcome. Ethan noticed the hesitation. It was precise, careful, and slow. Humans did not freeze in moments like these. He stepped forward. "We need to isolate the engine manually. The automated systems won't respond fast enough. We need a team at the perimeter now," the council members murmured among themselves. One senior officer said, "That is risky. Exposure to antimatter, even with protective suits, could be fatal." Ethan met their gaze steadily. "Yes, but if we wait, more will die. We act now, or we fail." Princess Silira spoke softly, almost to herself. "Let him lead. Trust in the human way." Her words carried across the chamber. The council hesitated, then nodded. For the first time, humans were being trusted not as assistants, not as observers, but as leaders in life and death situations. Ethan quickly organized a team. He included humans, Varelian engineers, and medics. Time was running out. The malfunctioning vessel was drifting dangerously close to the station's critical sectors. The crew of the vessel were already attempting to stabilize the engines, but communications were garbled, and the containment systems were failing. As they approached the vessel in a protective shuttle, Ethan noticed the subtle differences in human and Varelian approach. Humans acted quickly, relying on intuition and observation. Varelians analyzed every variable, double-checked every action. The combination was powerful but fragile. Hesitation could ruin it. Ethan took charge, dividing responsibilities and improvising when standard protocols were insufficient. When they reached the vessel, the real challenge began. The antimatter containment unit was overheating, its energy readings spiking dangerously. Ethan assessed the problem instantly. The automated cooling system had failed, and any attempt to override it from the console risked a feedback explosion. He turned to the team. "We need to access the containment manually. Protective suits only give us minutes. We need precision and speed." "Everyone ready?" They nodded. Humans gripped their tools, Varelians adjusted their energy shields, and Ethan led the way. Every step toward the containment unit felt like walking on the edge of a knife. The heat radiated through the suits. Alarms blared, and flashing lights made it hard to focus. Yet Ethan remained calm, issuing instructions with clarity, improvising when cables melted and controls failed. He noticed something remarkable about the human team members. Unlike the Varelians, they did not panic. Even as sparks flew and energy arcs threatened to knock them off balance, they improvised tools from spare components, calculated solutions on the fly, and adapted instantly when their plans failed. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but in moments like these, that unpredictability became their greatest strength. Hours, or what felt like hours, though in reality it was only minutes, passed as the team worked tirelessly. Finally, Ethan found a way to stabilize the cooling system manually. He instructed the team on a sequence of energy reroutes, and together, they carefully managed the antimatter containment. The temperature readings slowly began to drop. When the vessel's systems stabilized and the immediate danger passed, a collective sigh of relief echoed across the shuttle. Ethan leaned against the wall, exhausted, yet proud. He had done it. Humans had done it. Lives had been saved, not through rules, not through tradition, but through courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to act when hesitation would have been fatal. When they returned to the station, the council was waiting. Princess Sailira approached him first, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled, a real, human-like smile, rare for her species. "You have exceeded every expectation," she said softly. "You and your people have proven something today. The galaxy will not forget this." The council members nodded in agreement. Some had whispered doubts about humans before, thinking them fragile, reckless, or untrustworthy. Today, those doubts were gone. Humans had saved lives when protocol failed, when hesitation would have been deadly. They had acted where others could only calculate. Ethan realized something else in that moment. This wasn't about personal heroism. It wasn't about recognition. It was about humanity's role in the galaxy. The station and the galaxy beyond needed humans not for their strength or technology, but for their ability to act, to adapt, to face danger without flinching. Over the following days, the council formally recognized Ethan and his human team. Medals, commendations, and honors were bestowed, but more importantly, the station's emergency protocols were rewritten to incorporate human methods. Humans were now official leaders in critical response operations. Their reputation as unpredictable, courageous problem solvers was solidified. Yet Ethan remained grounded. He knew that this was just one crisis, one example. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and full of dangers that humans had yet to encounter. But for the first time, he felt a sense of belonging. Humans were no longer minor participants in galactic politics. They were essential, trusted, and capable of saving lives where centuries of tradition and advanced technology might fail. He spent the evenings reflecting on what had happened. Looking at the stars beyond the station, he realized the magnitude of humanity's potential. Humans were young in the galactic sense, but in moments of crisis, they could shine brighter than any civilization. Courage, empathy, and action, qualities long undervalued, were now the key to survival and respect among the stars. Princess Scifi visited him one evening on the observation deck, the same place where she had first explained the importance of human action. "Ethan," she said softly, "you have changed the way the galaxy sees humans, not just through skill, not just through courage, but through choice. You chose to act when others hesitated. That is more valuable than any weapon or technology?" Ethan nodded, thinking of the coffee incident, the weeks of training, and the crisis with the antimatter containment. "I just did what I thought was right. And that is why humans are extraordinary," she said. "Do not underestimate yourselves. The galaxy will need your kind of thinking more than ever." Over the next weeks, the station became a hub for human-led emergency teams. Humans were paired with engineers, medics, and diplomats from countless species. Their ability to improvise, adapt, and act under pressure made them invaluable. Ethan led workshops, shared lessons from his experiences, and trained new humans arriving on the station. Every drill, every real crisis, reinforced the same truth. Humanity's greatest strength lay in action, courage, and adaptability. One day, a new challenge emerged. A fleet of alien vessels, unfamiliar and aggressive, entered the station's sector without warning. The automated defenses failed to recognize them as hostile, leaving gaps in the station's shields. Panic spread among some species, yet humans, led by Ethan, immediately analyzed the situation, coordinated defenses, and prevented a confrontation from turning deadly. Their actions bought time for diplomacy, avoiding conflict while keeping everyone safe. For Ethan, it was confirmation of everything he had learned. Humans did not need to be the strongest, fastest, or most technologically advanced to matter. They needed to think, to act, to adapt, and to trust one another. That was more than enough. That was enough to influence empires, save lives, and change the galaxy's perception of an entire species. Princess Scifi watched him from a distance during the operation, pride evident in her expression. She had seen countless leaders, warriors, and strategists, but humans, especially this one, were different. Unpredictable, yes. Imperfect, yes, but capable of brilliance in moments when logic and protocol would have failed. Ethan stood among his human and alien colleagues, realizing that every choice he made, every action he took, carried the weight of possibility. He was no longer just a junior aide. He was a symbol of human potential, a living example that courage, empathy, and decisive action could influence events far beyond what anyone had imagined. And as the stars stretched endlessly outside the observation windows, he understood the truth of Princess Scifi's words. Humans were not yet fully known, not yet fully understood. But when the galaxy faced its darkest moments, humans would be ready to act where others could not. For the first time, Ethan felt confident, not just in himself, but in humanity's place among the stars. The trials were far from over. The galaxy would continue to challenge them, test them, and push them to their limits. But humans, unpredictable, courageous, and adaptive, were ready. And that readiness would change the course of history. The calm that followed the crises was fragile. Ethan Cole had become a recognized figure on the station, admired by some, watched with suspicion by others. Humans were no longer invisible observers. They were leaders, problem solvers, and symbols of unpredictability in a galaxy that valued order above all. Yet, Ethan knew the galaxy did not forgive mistakes, and reputation could vanish in a single moment. It was during a routine morning that the next challenge arrived. The sensors picked up a massive anomaly approaching the station, a rogue asteroid cluster, accelerated by an unknown energy source, heading straight toward the docking sectors. A collision would destroy critical infrastructure, including the sectors housing dozens of alien species and the station's human quarters. The automated defense systems were incapable of halting the fast-moving rocks, and the alien engineers were debating theoretical solutions, each calculation more complex than the last. Ethan stepped onto the command deck, scanning the holographic displays. The Varelians hesitated, as they often did, analyzing probabilities. Humans did not wait. He immediately saw a possible approach. "We can't wait for calculations," he said. "We need to act now. We can deploy the kinetic deflectors manually. We have the tools. We just need coordination." A council member raised a claw? That is reckless. The deflectors are dangerous if misaligned. Any error could amplify the impact. Ethan met her gaze steadily. "I know, but if we wait, the asteroid cluster hits. We act, or everyone here suffers. That is the risk we have to take." Princess Silira's eyes softened slightly, and she spoke, her voice carrying across the deck. "Trust the human. Let him lead. Your calculations are precise, but action is necessary now." The Varelians hesitated, then nodded. Ethan quickly organized teams. Humans would take key positions, Varelian engineers would guide the energy calibrations, and medics would prepare for emergencies. Within minutes, shuttles and manual operation units were dispatched to the docking sectors. Ethan worked tirelessly, coordinating, improvising, and adjusting as the rocks approached. Some were massive, larger than small buildings. Their trajectories were irregular, influenced by unseen forces. Standard protocols failed to account for such irregularity. Humans relied on instinct and observation, adjusting calculations in real time. While Varelians followed step-by-step instructions, the combination was chaotic but effective. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. Sparks flew as deflectors engaged. Energy fields shimmered around the largest asteroids, and alarms blared constantly. At one point, a massive rock threatened to break through the energy shield. Ethan had to make a split-second decision. He rerouted auxiliary power manually, risking overloading the system, and redirected the deflector just in time. The rock's trajectory shifted, narrowly missing the docking area. The human team executed each maneuver flawlessly, despite fatigue and stress. Ethan noticed their coordination, their willingness to act decisively, and their trust in one another. They were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability was what saved lives. While automated systems and traditional protocols hesitated, humans adapted instantly, improvising solutions in real time. When the last of the asteroid cluster had passed safely, the station erupted in cautious celebration. Damage was minimal, lives were safe, and the automated systems, reacting too slowly, were nowhere near as effective as human-led action. Ethan's heart raced, but a calm satisfaction settled over him. He had done his duty. Humans had done their duty. Princess Silira entered the control room, her presence commanding attention. She walked up to Ethan, her eyes serious yet proud. "Today, you and your people have proven what I have known for weeks. Humans are not just helpers, not just assistants. You are capable of leadership, innovation, and courage in ways the galaxy has not yet seen." Ethan shook his head, humbled. "I didn't do it alone. The Varelians, the engineers, the medics, they all acted too." "Yes," she acknowledged, "but it was your decision to act first, to lead. That is what makes humans extraordinary." The council convened immediately afterward. What had begun as a crisis became a defining moment. The Varelians proposed a formal recognition of human capability across the interstellar network. Humans would be integrated into emergency response teams, leadership roles, and crisis simulations station-wide. Their reputation as adaptable, courageous problem solvers was now cemented. News of the asteroid incident spread across the galaxy. Humans, once considered minor players, were now known as the species that could act decisively when others could not. Across species, their reputation grew. Delegates from other empires requested training sessions, observation missions, and human participation in high-risk operations. Humanity's place in the galaxy had shifted from observers to trusted agents of action. Ethan returned to the observation deck that evening, exhausted but reflective. The stars stretched endlessly before him, a reminder of the galaxy's vastness, unpredictability, and potential. Princess Scifi joined him silently, watching the distant lights. "You have changed the galaxy's perception of humans," she said softly. It began with a simple act, a spilled cup of coffee. It continued with courage, adaptability, and decisive action. "You have shown that humans are not only capable of survival but of leadership." Ethan laughed quietly, remembering the chaos of that first day. "I never imagined spilled coffee would lead to all this." "Small beginnings often lead to great change," she said. "You have taught me and the galaxy that courage and adaptability matter more than strict protocol. That is why humans will continue to rise, wherever they are needed." In the days that followed, Ethan continued to train new human teams, helping them navigate alien protocols, emergencies, and crises. Each success reinforced the lesson. Humans were invaluable, not because of strength or technology, but because they could act when it mattered, think when others hesitated, and care when others turned away. During one particularly intense simulation, a starship reactor threatened to destabilize a nearby planet. Automated protocols failed to prevent damage. Humans, led by Ethan, devised a new approach that neutralized the reactor safely. The Varelians observed in awe, realizing that centuries of tradition could not always predict the unpredictable. But humans could rise to the occasion. Ethan's reputation grew further, and with it, humanity's. Other species began requesting humans for missions, emergencies, and leadership roles across interstellar networks. Their unpredictability, once seen as a weakness, became their greatest strength. Months later, Princess Scifi formally addressed the station's council. "Humanity has proven that courage, adaptability, and empathy are forces that can shape the galaxy. They have acted decisively in moments where centuries of experience failed others. Humans are no longer minor players. They are essential. We will integrate their methods, their teams, and their insights wherever needed." Ethan watched from the back of the chamber, pride swelling in his chest. Humans had come so far, from junior aide serving coffee to leading interstellar crisis operations. They had proven that action mattered more than hesitation, that courage mattered more than strength, and that empathy could save lives where technology failed. In private, Princess Scifi approached him once more. "Ethan Cole," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "You have not only saved lives, you have shown the galaxy what humans can achieve. You have proven that, in a moment of choice, humans act, and that is worth more than any protocol, any calculation, or any weapon." Ethan smiled, humbled. "I only did what anyone would do." "No," she said, shaking her head slightly. "Not anyone. Only humans. And now, the galaxy will know it." Standing on the observation deck that night, Ethan looked out at the stars, feeling the weight of responsibility and the thrill of possibility. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and full of challenges. Yet he knew that humans, unpredictable, courageous, and adaptable, were ready. They would face danger, solve problems, and act when others froze. The lessons of the coffee incident, the antimatter crisis, and the asteroid cluster had all led to this. Humanity's role in the galaxy had shifted irrevocably. Humans were no longer observers. They were leaders, problem solvers, and trusted agents of action. And as Ethan stood among his people, gazing at the endless expanse of stars, he understood the ultimate truth. Humans did not need to be the strongest, fastest, or most technologically advanced. They needed to act. They needed to care. They needed to be human. And in that simple act of being human, they had changed the galaxy forever.